Okay, hello, welcome back. This is Bukola again, and today I'm talking about human trafficking, and I'm doing book reading. And this is my book, a real life experience of a survivor of human trafficking in the United States. This is my first time of reading my book. I started this a couple of days ago, and I read the preface, but sorry I couldn't get back on right away to continue, but I'm continuing today with chapter 1. And this is what the book looks like. Chapter 1's title is called Deportation or Death, the Ultimate Choice. And what informed this title for me is because most of the time, as a foreign-born victim of human trafficking in the United States, one of the challenges that victims face is that they are being threatened with deportation by their traffickers if they are from another country. So basically, reading this book is to be able to open the public's eyes to understanding a victim of human trafficking that is foreign born, meaning someone who is from another country, but in the US that might be a victim of human trafficking. How do you identify? What are the things that make someone? Yes, there are many. Somebody just asked, any African Americans live in your area? Yes, there are many African Americans living in my area, and there are many Africans too, and other nations, citizens that live here. And some people are victims of human trafficking, but they don't know, or people don't even know how to identify. And sometimes people ask, why does a victim stay? One of the things that is used to keep a victim shut down is the threat of deportation. So I'm going to be reading the chapter 1 now. When I walked through the door into the Alexandra house, the battered women's shelter, I thought it was the end for me. And really, when I got to Alexandra House is a battered women's shelter in Minnesota, and that was the shelter that took me in and took care of me and my child. But it was something new for me. It was something I'd never experienced. But I'm grateful today that I went to Alexandra House. So I thought it was the end for me. I never imagined that I could leave that place, going to my own home. I thought two things could happen. It was either deportation or death. I could feel death. I was just like a walking corpse. But I did not want to lose my son. I kept thinking about who I could trust to leave him with, at least if I passed away. My mind was not settled. No one knew the agony I was going through. I already lost touch with the world, so to speak. I could not even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Whenever I looked in the mirror, I saw an old, strange woman staring back at me. Someone I had never met in my life. I touched my face and asked, "Who is this?" But I never got an answer of who that was. Jane was one of the shelter advocates. She did our intake in the playroom that afternoon of October 16, 2007. After relating my story to her in tears, she said, "You are in the right place." I did not know whether to believe it or not. The future was bleak. She took us into one room, the first room on the right side of the hallway. We took the lower part of the double bunk bed. I spread the bedsheet provided by Jen. She had taken us into the room with a cart of bed sheets, blankets, toiletries, and basic needs we will require during our stay. She told me that residents were allowed to stay between 30 to 42 days or more depending on each person's case. Jane took me through the rules of the house. She also made me to understand that I will have chores, house job to do for the next day until I left the shelter. She said I would be assigned a primary advocate by morning the next day, and my advocate would be Laura. At the time we checked in, it was snack time, and she asked if I would like to have snack. I refused because I had no appetite for food or anything that went into the mouth except water. There were 2 phone booths in the living area for us to make calls. On the wall were instructions on how to block the numbers whenever we wanted to make calls to those who did not want to make calls to those we did not want to find out where we were. I called a friend and told her where we were. When she finished from work, she came to pick Samuel, my son, and me to eat out. She also took us to Payless Shoes, where she bought us 2 pairs of shoes each. We stopped at Walmart to buy socks and underwear. We, however, had to return to the shelter before curfew, which was 9:30 p.m. I went to the shelter with just my documents and barely anything more because I did not want to raise alarm or raise suspicion of our escape from my matrimonial home. Laura resumed at 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, October 17, 2007, and invited me into one of the offices where I related my ordeal to her. She reassured me that I was in the right place and that I will regain my freedom, get an immigration status to remain and live in the United States without my husband. But again, I was overshadowed with doubts. By Friday, I was taken to the legal office of Alexandra House, located near the Anoka County Government Court House in Anoka, Minnesota. They were going to file an order for protection on my behalf and that of Samuel against my husband, Tade, who kept him away from us, to keep him away from us. I met Anne, a legal advocate, who asked if I still wanted to go forward with an OFP, the order for protection, despite the risk involved. That is, my immigration status issue and being that my marriage with Tade was undocumented. So I'm going to stop here and just give a little bit explanation. So I talked about legal issues. That is one of the reasons that people are vulnerable, especially immigrants, to human trafficking in the United States. The legal issues. When you don't have legal status, it makes you vulnerable to becoming victim of human trafficking because somebody can use that against you. In my case, that was one of the things used against me. And also the fact that my marriage to my husband was traditional, so we didn't have legal documentation to show that I was married to him other than families. And in the United States, you need legal paper. You need paper to show. You can run to Las Vegas and marry and come back with paper. But in Nigeria, where I come from, you can marry with paper and you can marry without paper. So in my case, it was without paper, and that was one of the things used against me to keep me down, so that I will not be able to talk to anybody. I will not be able to reach out for help. And even at the point where I was reaching out for help, that was another challenge that even advocates have to tell me and go through. So if you are an advocate out there, regardless of the challenge, I think it is important to encourage the victim to reach out for help. And stay with the victim to help that victim to really get help and be free again. It is not a good experience for anyone to be a victim of human trafficking. And human trafficking in the various communities is different from one another the way it happens. In some cases, a family member is the trafficker. It could be a spouse. And it is important to understand this fact that a spouse can be the trafficker. And sometimes what you will notice first is domestic abuse. Because domestic abuse is so common and it is easy to identify, you will think you are dealing with domestic abuse. But when you dig deeper or investigate or take time, because it can take a long time to really find out what is really going on. And I also talked about not recognizing myself and that I was a walking corpse. Yes, at that time, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that I was depressed. I was so depressed that when I was referred to mental health therapy, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder because I touch my face, I look in the mirror, I couldn't recognize myself. And it's the same for so many victims. They suffer post-traumatic stress disorder. Someone else might not being able to see themselves, but there is all kinds of things going on in their head, and fear especially, because fear is the first thing you might notice in a victim. So I'm going to this chapter 1. There is not a lot more, so I will just go ahead and finish the chapter 1. So according to her, if our marriage was documented, I would have been qualified to file for a status under the Violence Against Women Act. That is so popular. It's easy to know. So VAWA. However, some victims cannot file VAWA. Trafficking victims, most of the time, they file T visa or U visa for them in the United States. My life was more paramount in my mind. I wanted a safe place to stay alive to take care of my child, who was only 11 months old. So I told her I would go ahead with the OFP. I told my story while she typed. When I was finished, she said she would take it to the court for signature to make it legal. Then my husband would be served after we might have been given a court date. Mind you, I was doing all that in fear. I didn't know what was going to be the outcome. I was scared to death, but I wanted to be free. So most of the time when you come in contact with a victim, the most paramount thing in their mind is safety and freedom. So how do you get that freedom for them? How do you get them to safety? So that's the thing that should always be in the mind of individual people, community people. If you want to help a victim, you have to think about safety first. Safety. How do you assure this person that this person is going to be safe? Oh, so I could not tell everything that happened to me. I did not have the confidence to relate my entire story. I did not lie, but I did not tell the whole story. I was going through all that without the confidence that I was actually working with those who have my best interests at heart. I had been in a situation where those who were supposed to be for me had always betrayed me by blaming me for the pain I had suffered in the hands of my slave master. Most of the times, we blame victims. People, we need to change our thinking. We need to change the way we relate to victims. A victim needs all the help. A victim needs all the assurance. Not, how could you be so stupid? Even when a victim is telling you, oh, I was so naive, I was so stupid, reassure the victim that the victim is not stupid. The victim was vulnerable. And try to see how to get help for that victim. Because even when you have the help, the victim is still struggling to trust you, to be able to take help from you. And that was what was happening to me at that time. Our first court appearance was on Monday, October 29, 2007. I had a pro bono lawyer through Alexandra House who represented me in court. I went in company of Anne and Christine. They also accompanied another lady who was filing an OFP through them. When we got to court, however, Tade sought for continuance. He wanted to be represented by an attorney, so the hearing was adjourned for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, my father had called from home in Nigeria to find out what was wrong. He told me that Tade's sister, who also lived in Nigeria, had called to harass him about the OFP that I filed in court. My father told me she called to advise him to tell me to withdraw the OFP against Tade because he feared deportation. But I told my father that I could not do so because I could no longer bear the suffering meted on me and Samuel. I also made him to understand that Tade had tried to put me in trouble with the law through threats and by calling the police to make false allegations against me. So I needed to seek safety for my sake and that of the baby. So also another thing to take note of, especially in the immigrant community, and this time I'm talking to law enforcement, if you're a police officer or you work with police officers, when you are called out, sometimes the perpetrator is the one calling you out, because that is another tool that traffickers and abusers use against their victim. I'm going to call the police on you and you're going to be deported. So if the perpetrator has been threatening with police, the perpetrator can actually call the police and frame it such that the victim will be the one that will be taken to jail and be suffering, even though the victim was the one suffering initially. So it is important to always pay attention, because you never know. You might be the one that will rescue somebody from human trafficking or from slavery. So please, if you have any question, you can follow me on Periscope. I'm also on Facebook as Bukola Oriola. I'm on Twitter as Bukola Oriola. You can follow me on Twitter. And if you know anybody who needs help, please contact me. Now, I started an organization called the Anyton Story, and the Anyton Story help victims and survivors of human trafficking and domestic abuse. If you don't know exactly what you are going through or what is going on, please contact me and I will be able to help you to know if that person is a victim or that person needs help, because there is help available. And in September, in 2 months, I'll be going to Nigeria. It's called Bringing the Story Back Home. You can follow me also on Facebook. It's called Bringing the Story Back Home. And there is a website for it where you can see what I'm doing. So please contact me if you know somebody who needs help. I want to thank you for staying with me this time. I hope to continue the book reading sometime soon. God bless you and bye-bye.